This next discussion will look at how loyalty can become less transactional and more personalized. Joining us will be the SVP of Customer Loyalty and Flying Blue Director at Air France-KLM, Frédéric Kahane, and the Group Head of Travel Products at Collinson, Peter Gerstle, in conversation with Skift Editor-at-Large, Brian Summers.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. First, I want to very briefly introduce you, just go a little bit further. Peter, you're going to speak a little bit today about the world of paid loyalty. I know that Collinson does a lot of different things, but we're going to look at sort of subscriptions and paid things for loyalty. And Frédéric, we're going to look more at traditional loyalty, including some of the partnerships that Air France-KLM has gone through over the last year or so. But first, a very broad question, and I'm wondering if Frédéric can speak to this first. It has been a time of huge change in the airline industry, and a lot of that has spilled into loyalty. What has changed in the Flying Blue program over the past year? What are you doing differently, and how have you been able to weather this very rough period for global airlines?
Well, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I think, Brian, of course, this is totally unprecedented for us, not only for the airlines, but also for the airlines loyalty programs. The good news is that in the past, I mean, the airlines loyalty program have shown, let's say, their adaptability and their way to adapt to different type of situation, a different type of evolution. And this is not an exception to this one. So actually, what we did, I think, the main thing that we did in the last couple of months was to create a bit of a peace of mind for the members in order to not add, let's say, uncertainty to the overall anxiety created by the crisis. So the first measures that we have let's say, taken were definitely to create this peace of mind by maintaining the tier level, by extending the validity of the miles, and to make sure that the members in those very troubled times, they were not unnecessarily bothered with some concern regarding the loyalty program. That was a very, very important step to make sure that, they will remain, let's say, peaceful in this crisis.
And you've also worked with partners as well to make the program a little bit more relevant, right? If people aren't using their points and miles on flying, they're using them on something else?
Yes, absolutely. And that was the second part of what we did, because, of course, this crisis came with major changes in the behavior of our members, knowing that, of course, most of the usual transactions that were made through the airlines were gone because there were almost no transactions. So we had to really keep on engaging members through different type of interactions. And this came mainly from the partners, and especially the non-travel related partners. So of course, we have put a lot of focus on promoting, communicating all the partnerships that we have within the Flying Blue program that are not necessarily travel related, in order to keep this engagement, to keep those interactions with the members, even in those troubled times.
Okay. And Peter, what about for you? What have you been using the last year to do? I know we talked before this. It's like you're on a one-man campaign to bring more paid loyalty into this world, and I understand it better because you were one of the original heads of EasyJet Plus, right? So you want to bring this to the greater world. How does it work?
So fundamentally, I believe that loyalty is great, and we all have lived with earn programs for 40 plus years or so. But the world has changed. Airlines have actually changed because they made it harder, effectively, for people to be engaged by the program, because it's harder to get into Elite, because it's more linked to revenue, all that sort of stuff. So what I found at EasyJet, clearly EasyJet doesn't have a points-based loyalty program and still doesn't. But there's another way of engendering loyalty, and it's a way that is prominent now, and has we live in a subscription world, we live in a paid loyalty world, is effectively to create a financial bond between the customer and the brand, and effectively to forward pay almost and guarantee future engagement. So EasyJet Plus was born out of out of the ancillary revolution, effectively, I introduced speedy boarding, which is the priority boarding program for EasyJet, and out of that was created a program that gave you unlimited access to speedy boarding. That only works, and you pay for that, but that only works if you know that you're going to engage with the brand. And given a choice, it creates bias. Given a choice between a BA flight and an EasyJet flight, if you've got the EasyJet Plus program, you're going to select the EasyJet flight. So that's loyalty at the end of the day. That's commercial loyalty. And beyond that, we also found in the data that it goes beyond commercial loyalty. So EasyJet Plus members turn out to be better advocates and have a higher kind of retention rate. And as far as share of wallet analysis was possible, we also gained a greater share of wallet of those customers. And all these are KPIs of a great functioning loyalty program.
So if we think about your experience going into an airline headquarters 14 months ago and giving this pitch versus now doing it digitally, do you find that global airlines are more receptive to this pitch than they were, or maybe less?
Well, I think they should be more receptive. So, I mean, there's a number of reasons why this the pandemic has brought this to the fore. Originally, the program that we've conceived at Collinson was aimed at, or it still is designed for what we call ex-elites, people who drop out of elite status for a number of reasons, but often because they don't qualify. They might fly the same, but they don't spend enough on high-priced tickets. They don't qualify. So that cliff edge, that cliff of ex-elites, for which airlines don't really have a product to catch them. You drop out of elite, sorry. That's it. There's nothing there, really. That problem will be exacerbated through the pandemic, because with all the status extensions that are happening, that's great. And I'm a beneficiary of those status extensions with my affiliations. But they'll come to a cliff where a lot of people will drop out of the program because they just don't have enough travel activity. And to keep those people and keep them feel special and keep them focusing on your brand, give them the opportunity to buy into a little bit of the loyalty stuff, a little bit of the good life that they were used to, and thus again generate that sort of rapport that I demonstrated through EasyJet Plus. The financial.
Great, thank you. I believe that we have some poll results on the screen. We've asked you, the audience, whether people are now accustomed to paying for loyalty program benefits. It looks like, at least among the people that we polled, the answer is 3/4 say no. I'm curious, Frédéric, I don't think Air France-KLM has a huge paid loyalty arm. Are you sort of the opinion that it's best to go through and keep your customers' loyalty the old-fashioned way rather than asking them to pay for products as they go along?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's to keep them the old-fashioned way. And actually, we had our fair share of discussion with Peter about this one. I found it as a very interesting direction. I would not say necessarily that it's as a kind of a loud statement that this is the way to go, but obviously there are some, let's say, pragmatic ways to embark the paid subscription model in the loyalty scheme, in the airline's loyalty scheme. Of course, today we need to pay attention because, of course, the airlines are also developing a lot of ancillaries and ancillary product paid options. So, of course, to combine all of this and the airlines loyalty program, at least the legacy carriers one, have been built very much upon the years based on, let's say, free perks for certain tiers, discount, etc. So it can conflict to a certain extent this type of subscription model in which we tend indeed to give a discounted price or for free some benefits from the airlines. Still, talking about, let's say, a few other topics that are maybe more related to miles as a currency, like miles booster, this type of feature, they can qualify quite nicely with this type of subscription model. There is another one that, and it's a bit too early for me to share, but there is another one for which this type of model can also play a role, which is very much related, let's say, to the sustainability and the fact that some customers can also be willing, let's say, to pay for subscription model in order to make sure that all the flights are carbon neutral or compensated. So this is those type of direction that we can explore. So I would not say a big yes, that's the model we should go, and that's definitely the highway to go there. But obviously, in a pragmatic way, I think we can embark here and there some part of this subscription model.
And just to be very clear, Brian, never ever would I advocate a wholesale shift to paid loyalty. I'm saying paid loyalty, and Frédéric actually supported that, is a strategy, is part of the wider strategy. It engages a certain customer base in a certain way, a customer base for either you don't have a program or don't have a value equation for, or an entirely new customer base that you couldn't attract otherwise. I think Brad in TripAdvisor mentioned something like that. It just opens up new markets for you, but not to the exclusion of a solid, well-run, earned-based loyalty program.
Peter, what airline besides maybe your former employer EasyJet is doing this model well right now, or does it not really exist at scale?
It doesn't. It plainly doesn't. There's a lot of paid programs as such in the airline industry. You know, there's in the US, a lot, basically lounge access is really through a paid program. United is a front runner of something not dissimilar to what EasyJet Plus is, namely, you know, those subscriptions that they have to bags, to plus seats, etc. But none of those really tackle the core and of loyalty and use loyalty assets that are there. That is, you know, earning capability, that is access to certain perks, all of that. None of that has really been ancillarized and packaged in a way that is accessible through a paid program.
And Peter, when you go to these airline headquarters now virtually, what's the number one pushback that you get? No, Peter, we can't do this because.
So everybody says, you know, they kind of get it, but the but is still huge. A, because it still takes a lot to get your head around it. Secondly, if you've got 40 years of kind of loyalty managers experience in earned, they don't even know where to start and how to design the program. That's kind of where we come in, and that's why I think, you know, a lot of airlines would do well to consider outsourcing this. This is innovation after all, so there's a degree of risk as well. And if you've got an outsourced partner who's willing to carry some of that risk, you know, that's a good situation to have. So it's not the intellectual, I don't get it. It's, how do I do it? That's the main pushback.
Thank you. Frédéric, we have an audience question for you. It's kind of about technology and partnerships. The question is, given the typical difficulty the industry has around disparate systems and connectivity, can you speak to any methods or technology you've incorporated to make these non-hospitality partnerships more streamlined rather than manual offline reconciliations?
Yeah, I think that's a great challenge indeed. That's probably one of the biggest one. Indeed, to be able to connect with all those partners in a smooth way for the customers. Well, the good news is that indeed now the digital ecosystem, the e-commerce, the new ways, the new payment ways, the fintech, there are zillion of providers on the market that can really try to connect the various dots. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy indeed to find the right provider, to find how to connect all those dots together, coming from our own system to the system of the partner, on top of that the front end, etc. So again, the good news is that with the APIs, with let's say the digital technology, we are able to reconcile, let's say, those various touch points. But I would say that at this time, for each partner, it's a new challenge. So it depends a little the way we want to get integrated with the partner. But if I take, for instance, the example of the partnership that we have with Accor, it's a very strong partnership with a kind of double dipping mechanism between the two of us. It was quite of a challenge also to make sure that both teams of the two partners were working on the same time, on the same pace, for the same goal, in order to make this seamless experience for the customer. So I would not say that there is a kind of, let's say, easy answer to this one. It's a challenge. But I would say that it's getting facilitated day after day with the new technology that we can see coming from the market.
And let me just ask you this quick follow-up question. This past 14 months, very few people are traveling. When they want to redeem Flying Blue miles for partnerships, what do they want? Do they want Apple iPads? Do they want something else? What are they redeeming for?
Well, we have a few very popular products indeed. Well, it depends on the miles balance of the members, but obviously, I mean, the headsets are very high on the list. Otherwise, I would say that yeah, they are also very keen on redeeming on vouchers, e-bond, gift vouchers, this type of redemption articles. But Brian, I think what they are looking even more is not necessarily redemption at this stage, is more accrual. So they are really keen on making sure that with this partnership ecosystem, we also totally diversify the sources of accrual for the members, because obviously in the current times, most of the accrual, it doesn't come from, let's say, the flight activity. So it has to come from the partners, and this is what they are looking for. And so mainly the accrual. And as far as we are concerned, almost 50% of the miles accumulated by the members, they are accumulated on the non-airline partners. So it's already
people are insanely interested in these miles, aren't they?
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
And actually, this is a good segue into paid loyalty, because one of the ways that we see paid loyalty working is actually incentivizing that partner activity even more, and driving people to using partners. And a paid relationship will always be a closer one in terms of the data, the communication rights, the acceptance of receiving information. If you've got a paid bond between you and your customer, you can do so much more on a marketing level as well.
You don't think it's an annoyance that people are going to have to pay for something that used to be free and that sort of thing?
Brian, that's misrepresenting. I'm not saying they're paying, they have to pay for something they used to get free. I'm saying there is an option to get access to that if you pay. The alternative will still be to get it through the earned route, to spend lots of money on flights, to take a year or two to get to a certain status. What I'm saying is there is a way to accelerate, and the key thing here is not to undermine your earned incentives. So again, this goes beyond this conversation, but there's a skill in having a program design that allows you to have a pay program alongside an earn program. It's not about forcing people one way or the other. It's giving them the choice.
And you see this for full service airlines and low cost carriers and everybody in between?
Arguably even more for full service carriers. Absolutely.
So we're almost out of time. I wanted to ask a big picture question to you, Frédéric, first. What's the next big trend in loyalty? We're coming out of this. We hope we're coming out of this global pandemic period. What are you looking at for the industry in the next 1 to 3 years as changes that we should be watching?
Well, I think, like I said at the beginning, the current period makes no exception with I would say the evolution that we have seen so far. And if you look back, actually, we moved from frequent flyer programs to airlines loyalty program, and I'm pretty sure that the next step is about lifestyle loyalty programs. So there will be this, and I think it has been accelerated also by the current crisis, because the value of the miles remain unchanged. I mean, it's strongly connected to the airlines, and the value of the mile remains very much related to the ability to redeem miles for reward tickets. This isn't changed. What changed also during the crisis is that the sources of accrual were much lower, and people now are really looking for accumulating, gaining this type of currency with other partnerships. So I'm pretty convinced that we will move into this direction, which is that the loyalty programs, the airlines loyalty program, at the end of the day, it's not only a matter of distance. That will really be a much more, I would say, daily engagement of the customers. I'm convinced of that.
Thank you. And Peter, last word to you. What trend are you looking at? Is it paid loyalty by any chance?
The future is paid loyalty, but really what it is just the loyalty program employing more nuanced techniques to engage with the customer. Paid is part of that, but not to the exclusion of other stuff.
Thank you both for the time. I appreciate it.
A pleasure. Thanks a lot, guys.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.